Welcome. And then Art Lehman is back. Nice to see you, Art. Nice to see you. And we got a new guest. Adam Dorter. And we want to thank some of the people who bought treats, Bob Colby, Keith Bailey, Jack Ackerman, and John Hicks. Thank you. Want to remind everybody of the board meeting next Tuesday, the 17th at 7 o'clock, Dave Turner's house. Thank you, Dave, for hosting those. And for announcements, we have, a couple months ago, we had the Cedar Valley Makers came in and did a little presentation on their, just starting up the Makers Club. They are actually having an open house Thursday, the 12th, from 5 to 7. If anybody wants to go check them out and see what they're about. And there's some flyers up here. Take them with you if you want, or just check them out. Then we have, Pete brought in a couple of what is this? You guys have a chance to look at these? Anybody have an idea what this is?
I think it's for riveting. Go behind the ribbon.
To hold it behind the ribbon? Okay, any other ideas?
Give them a clue. It's used in New Orleans or anywhere on the East Coast.
Opening line.
Yeah, pearl finder. I call it pearl finder.
It's for opening clams, right?
Opening clams. Yep.
Why do you need the blood in?
Huh?
Why do you need the blood heavy in there?
It's a real old one,
Oh,
and so
they weren't taking up ergonomics.
I could use that for about 2 minutes the way to do it.
I get that. It wasn't very ergonomic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know.
So yeah, opening clams. Anybody have an idea what this one is?
Yeah, I think a lot of people guess that. That's the Japanese mortise and tenon marking game.
Morse and tendon.
Yeah. You can slide those words in and out, mark. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. Would have never guessed that one. Then we have a couple pieces of wood that's a kind of question. We have this piece of, anybody have an idea what kind of wood this one is? Hackberry?
Someone suggested, how about olive?
He said far right.
Russian olive? I don't know. No? Carl?
Tulip poplar.
Tulip poplar. Okay. Yeah. It's kind of neat the way to start to deteriorate the inside. Then there's another one here. Any ideas on this one? Hickory? Everybody agreed on hickory?
Dancing on the secret.
Don't think it's ash. So you think it's what? Butternut in here? No.
Two gas.
What?
Two gas.
Too dense? Well, anyway, kind of really unknown. So, anybody has an idea what it is? Piece of liquid, bark liquid? Also want to make an announcement. We have some Intarsia plans over here. that are welcome to take with you. That was brought in, just somebody clean out the shop. They're in Tarja. In Tarja. Bob Hewlett has an announcement.
Yeah, a friend of mine has 2 logs, 12 inches diameter, 8 feet long, with walnut. Been in the shed for about 10 years, but he wants to get rid of it. So if you're interested, come to me.
So contact you, Bob, or? Okay. All right, good, good. Well, it looks like we got a good turnout. It's time for show and tell. Looks like we got a good turnout on the 2x4 project. So anybody up here, come up here and talk about what they brought for show and tell, and then we'll talk about the 2x4 challenge. Come on up. And who brought this piece in? Just go right down the line here. Okay.
You want to do 2x4 project now?
Yeah, we'll just go right down the line.
I bought a drum a while back, full battery operated thing, and it came in a wooden or a cardboard sleeve, which is really convenient to get it in and out all the time. So with this challenge, we decided to make a little box for it. And this is one of my first attempts at using a router freehand. I'll take the holes, so there's a few hoopses in there, but I'm fixed pretty well. I do have suggestions on these challenges. Why don't we talk to some local high school shop teachers, get your kids involved in some of this, maybe get some younger people out here. Who's next?
So this month I brought a mortar and pestle set. This was my first ever wood turning project, so I had a lot of fun. Actually had Dan Webb help me out and let me use his lathe for this one, so it was a really fun time. It's a graduation gift for my girlfriend Lexi, who actually graduates this weekend, so finished it just in time. Had a little fun. One additional thing that Dan thought of is that we put a little teal knob at the end of it, so like it's a little accent piece for Lexi. It's made from black walnut, and I put on more coats of Danish oil than I care to count, and then I finished it off with wax.
Now, I kind of forgot about this until the last minute, but we're enclosing our 12 by 24 deck and footings in, 45 inches deep, 13 inches above the ground, 80-pound bags, 24 of them, mixed them all by hand. My muscles are a little sore. So I just whip this thing out real quick. If you can't find it, then you must build it. If you can't build it, then you must need more tools. For 16 years, I might stop out there on my way home and see if they want to hang that over their tool department. Or that could be our model from now on.
Howard, how do you make the lettering? How did you do the lettering?
The lettering? Well, I just took my pencil and just scribbled it on there real quick, and then I took my rubber, quarter-inch blade, put it about, a little over quarter-inch deep, and routed the letters in there. Then I took my torch and my soldering torch and burnt all the letters in, and then went back over it and sanded off the front. And then I just took my little 4-inch grinder, nicked it on there a little bit. But yeah, all those letters are burned in there.
And you just freehand your letters.
Got 3-handed letters, yeah.
That's very good.
Back when I was a kid in high school, I had my own sign making business. Our next door neighbors had a drugstore and they let me hang a sign in the window, and I got quite a good bit, so this is probably about the first sign I've done since then, though. But then I just took an old chain that I had, but if Home Depot wants to hang it, I'll let them hang, or I'll put it in my shop, or we can hang it in here.
Just want to let our guests know that we had a 2x4 challenge. 2x4 about 4 foot long, make something creative, be innovative, do something different. So anyway, this is my creation from a piece of 2x4. You know, Pinterest is great. So basically I got a 1 star from Pinterest, and then I added 20% to it, and then took 20% off it, and it just came right up to a 4 foot piece of 2x4. And so I just put it on a spinner on a shepherd's hook and for 4th of July.
Okay, I do a lot of kayaking, so I thought I could make a kayak paddle. So I took my 2x4 over the beat columns because my blade didn't open quite so far. I thought I was going to make this all out of one piece. I cut both sides out and turned it on the lathe, and with the paddles were actually on here, turned out to be square, and they didn't look that well, so I whacked them off and took more 2x4s and cut them in half, glued them together, and run them through the thickness spreader, and then I painted it up.
Danny went out and found a real nice tube for no knots. No, I didn't do that. I went to Menards, picked one off the top of the pile. You know, a couple years ago we had a 2x4 contest, 8 feet long. Now it's only 4 feet. Times are getting tough. Anyway, the handle in here is 4 feet. Then I took the rest of the 2x4, glued it on the sides, and a couple coats of poly. But it's a lot of knots, and it's probably going to break pretty quick.
Well, I've always said that we learn as we go, you know. And for my 2x4 project, I started out with this piece, and like it says here, it's the prototype went bad. It didn't work. My wife has a lot of flower gardens, and she likes trellises, so I thought I'd make her some trellises. And so, anyway, this one broke. So what I did, after I learned how to resaw it properly, I made this one, and she said, hey, that's fine, you'll stick it in the ground. And then I had a lot of pieces left over, so I made this one, and then I had more pieces left over, and I made a dairy, because she has a particular flower, this is going to fit over the top. So, anyway, that's 1 2x4, 8 feet long, or 4 feet long, where 2 feet of it went bad.
Well, a couple of months ago, I came in here with a set of TV trays, and every time you make something, you always cut it a little, you make it a little bigger and then cut it down to the size you want it. So I had all these drop pieces, and I thought, what am I going to do with them? So I decided to make an alphabet out of them, and I made 5 of these. One, I'm going to, when I get it all finished, this part isn't finished yet, because I kind of screwed up. I didn't have this wide enough for 13 letters, so I figured I had to put 2 on top. Oh well. So I made this to just kind of set the AB up on top. And then this is
this is dropped, the back 3¼ piece is not. This is a resaw that I did, and I ran it through my thickness planer. I put the letters on, and when I did it, I laid them all out and put A, B, C, D. Then when I flipped them, I went ahead and put the A in the second row, so that if they want to spell something, they can use the different blocks to spell something out. So there's A, B's, C's, and D's, probably 4 of each. And once I get this done, then I'll have that varnished also. It's just got a sprayed polyurethane on it. But it's a good use. I'm a pack rat. It's a good use of your scrap stuff that you don't know what to do with. Thank you.
I got this picture from my son, who said it's a Harry Potter lamp. It has something to do with the invisible cloak and the magic wand up the middle and the rock over, power over death. I don't know. Anyway, he wanted me to build something like that, and about that time I went and looked at the computer and it said, we're having a thing to make something out of 4 foot of a 2x4. And I thought, well, maybe I could make that out of 4 foot of 2x4. So I went out to the garage and my 2x4 was only 3 foot long. So I went to Menards and they had them 8 foot long. So I bought an 8 foot and cut it in half. I thought that's fair. So I made a lamp similar to this, and it had pointed, the miters were cut the same all the way around, so they were pointed on the end. And this one, as you can see, is cut off at the end, like there. So I cut them off at a nice angle, and then my son looked at it and said, it looks like a yield sign. I don't like it. So I stained it. I thought it might look better stained. It didn't. It looked worse. It was terrible. So, and I only had the weekend to work on this, so I went back out. I had another half a 2x4 out there, another 4 foot. So I started over, and then I kept asking him, how do you want it? And the first thing I did was cut off a slit about 1 inch wide off the 2x4, and then I ran the 2x4 through the planer to get those edges off of it. Then I took the pieces that were left over and made them fit the circle, and then cut that out on the scroll saw. Then I wired it, and there's a little thing you can buy at Menards, a little white thing about this big, and it's buried in this bottom piece here. And if you plug this in and you touch the magic wand, the light comes on. If you touch it again, it gets brighter. Touch it again, you get brighter. 4th time, it goes off. So I thought that was pretty good. Went along with what he wanted, and he's happy with it now. So that's my 2x4 thing. Now, at the last year, I brought one thing for show and tell. So in January, on the 1st, I made a resolution. This year, I'm going to bring something every month. But I got behind and I missed January, and then I missed February, and then I missed March. So I'm trying to catch up, and I brought 3 things. This one and 2 others. That's January, February, March. Now next time, I'm hoping to do April, May, and June. All right, I'm watching television, and I see this logo up on television, and it has something to do with the Pittsburgh Zoo. But I thought, that's kind of cute. That would look good on a wall. And so I wrote down Pittsburgh Zoo, and the next day I looked it up on the computer, and I got this little picture of a tree. And so I went to the copy shop and made it bigger. And this is what it looked like. Now, what's neat about this is that it has 2 birds, 2 fish, a lion, and a gorilla on here. And of course, you want to locate it when it's on the wall. And so I didn't know what to cut it out of, but I thought I didn't want it very thick, and I went out and there was some scrap plywood left over. I don't like making things out of plywood, but it was just to try it out, so I taped 4 pieces of wood together. And then when I came in with them, after I'd cut them all out at once, my wife said, how many of those are you going to make? That takes too long doing that. She needed help in the garden. So you have to stain each one of those holes. And I stained it black to begin with, the first two. And so we went down to visit a friend of hers, and the friend of hers, I put it up on the wall, and she said, "Oh, I just love that. That looks so good on my wall." And my wife says, "Well, she can have it, can't she?" So by the time I got back from that trip, I had to go out and make 4 more of these. Anyway, if you come up, you can see if you can find the gorilla and the lion. The birds are on top, the fish are on the bottom, a little hint there. Then there was one other picture came up on the web, and it said, "How many animals can you see here?" So I cut it out of a piece of wood, and I cut it cross grain so things break off. The tail broke off today, but that's no big deal because it's half blue anyway by the time I get through with it. So that's my 3 things for the time. I don't know what kind of wood this is. In fact, I don't know what kind of wood anything is. So, except plywood, I understand plywood.
Well, I did one of these for the empty bowl thing last month, and it was supposed to have a handle like this, and I had trouble with it, so I threw that in the firewood and put just a little simple handle on that. And then these are out of the scraps, and it's all walnut, and I sprayed them with Krylon, except for this one. I did a fatal mistake on it, and so Don says, "Oh, just take it out and tilt the disc sander and sand it off." So I did, but it kind of showed. So I did a Watco wax finish on it. So that was it.
It's a seared shell, and then I got some, the wood in it is cooked, and so that it gets dark. It's poplar. I get the light colored poplar with the green in it, and then cook it, and it looks kind of like walnut by the time it's done, but it's real light. Then it worked for Christmas tree decorations like that. So then glue it together, turn it, and cut it apart, all that, get everything ready, and then turn it, and there's a 1/4-inch dowel that goes all the way through. That's what supports it. And then there's a goop glue. I've never used goop glue. Well, I'll tell you, it's something of the stickiest stuff I ever saw in my life. But it holds stuff pretty good. Anyway, I have 6 kids and 10 grandkids and a bunch of great-grandkids, and I have to make a lot of stuff when I make it. So that's what I'm in the process of doing here, just making a lot of them.
When you say cook the wood, you put it in the oven or boil it? When you say cook the wood, what do you mean?
I cook the wood, the poplar. I put it in the oven for about 380 degrees for about 2.5 hours, and it gets dark like that. The poplar does. I cook maple quite a bit. I like maple because it really smells good when it's cooking. I cook maple quite a bit, and it comes out really good too, as far as color. It darkens, it has to go up to like 390 degrees for like 4 hours to get the maple to darken. But it's different woods darken different amounts, and some of them don't even work. And it's pretty interesting to try to do. You ought to try it sometime. Just put it in the oven and turn the oven on and let it have at it, you know. cooked compared to non-cooked.
Does it get harder?
No, in fact, it gets just a little softer. It dries out a wee bit, and it turns just a little easier. The poplar turns, once it's cooked, it turns really, really nice. But some of the wood just makes a lot of smoke.
You do that when your wife's not home?
In the summertime, when you air the house out. Try it if you like it.
Me talking about cooking wood. How many saw the thing on Facebook a while back? The guy put some box of wood in a bowl, kept stirring and kept getting finer and finer and finer. He had some glue. He finally put it in a pan, slipped it in the cleaner for a while. Let it sit there for an hour. I think you see it on the video with it. Pulled the planer up, and here's this beautiful glue box. Okay, Paul, can you run that?
Okay. He'll get the lights here a second.
Mine was too big to bring up here. Remember a few months ago I made the sleigh bed that I had over here. That was heavy enough to bring up here, but about a week after I delivered the sleigh bed, my daughter called me and says, "Dad, they make us a cherry armoire." So, the armoire is just about 6 foot tall, it's 24 inches deep and 36 inches wide. It was cherry plywood and solid cherry for the door fronts and the doors. We can get a picture of it, if not, we'll just go without it.
Yeah. As soon as we get the lights, the picture's up there, it's just dark.
It was. I think it is now.
That should be up there yet. Yeah.
We just we're remodeling our house, and we started like last June or July. We gutted the kitchen and living room, and we built our own kitchen cabinets. And our cherries.
Lights so we can see it.
Yeah.
Get the lights so we can see it.
Kind of how we got in trouble last time, wasn't it?
Thank you, Mr. Pro.
I think he said if they turn those off, it kills all the power. No, you turn this off to turn the main off. He turns the main off, then they don't have power to the, Hey!
But they're out of cherry, you
It's really
know.
pretty.
And we just put black on, so they'll naturally age. This divides our living room and kitchen area. Just to show you some of the things that we put in. I put in this lift for my mixer. You know, it all has the soft close hinges and doors in our pantry. It took us a while.
Okay, that was all yours then?
Yeah. We live in West Union.
West Union.
Okay, and Tricia, that's the armor they maybe couldn't get up earlier. That's all cherry. The drawers, fronts, and doors are solid, the trim is solid. The sides and some of the others are quarters white lumber. It's not quite 6 foot tall, it's 3 foot wide and 24 deep. And it's heavy.
Okay, Bob Jefferson was looking for if anybody had any plans for a playhouse. He was looking for a small playhouse plans, so like 4x4, 4x6, 4x8. If anybody's got any plans they want to share with Bob Jefferson, go ahead and see him. Bob, come on, raise your hand. There you go. Yeah, see Bob afterwards and show your plans if you got them. Now we will introduce Lieutenant Bill Beck from the Waterloo Fire and Rescue. Talk to us about some wood safety, and we'll let him take over.
Flip that around here, maybe? Might have to be a little closer. Yeah, try that. Did everybody hear me? I'm not normally told I can't be heard. I appreciate you guys inviting us out. My name is Lieutenant Bill Beck, with the Waterloo Fire Department. Been a firefighter for about 12 years. When Battalion Chief Mike Moore asked me if I was willing to come do this, I thought, well, yeah, that'd be kind of a neat experience. I'm somewhat of an amateur woodworker myself. As you guys were doing the show and tell, I was thinking to myself, like, man, I built my own oar. And I've got a grandson, it's gone now, but I built myself blocks for him. You know, it's really neat. And maybe my story is identical to your story on how I got involved with it, or maybe it's my own unique one, but before I became a firefighter, I worked construction. Before that, I grew up on a farm, always been around power tools, enjoyed doing those types of things, and learned once I became a fireman, I enjoyed doing those things when I didn't have to do them for a living. I'd be a lot skinnier if I had to live off my hands anymore. It's just kind of one of those deals that you slowly build up your tool collection, and before you know it, you have to move it out of the garage, you have to move out of the basement, or you've got to somehow talk your wife into building a woodshed. If any of you guys have a good plan on that, I'd be willing to listen. I haven't quite gotten that far with her yet. But I came here today hopefully to give you some ideas on accident and fire safety in the wood shop. How many of you guys have, or ladies as well, your own dedicated wood shop to work in? Oh man, I got a long ways to go. Okay, how many of you guys just do it in your garage that's attached to the house, or in your basement? Okay, so there's a pretty wide variety of the different types of shops that we can use. The first thing I'm going to talk about is yearly ER visits. Everybody not have 10 fingers? That's pretty impressive. Everybody's paying attention. That's always a good sign. But last year, ER visits, and we're talking about trauma. We're talking about bloody injury. We're not talking about sprained back because you lift something that was too heavy and you went to the ER. So last year alone, table saws caused 39,750 ER visits. Makes sense, but nationwide. Yeah, not in Waterloo. That's nationwide. Okay? It makes sense. What's the big main tool that's probably in the middle of your dedicated shop? It's probably your table saw. If not, the table saw gets pushed out in the middle because you need a lot of room around it. What are the things that can go wrong with the table saw? Cut your finger off or kickback. Those are the two main things that I can think of when it comes to table saw injuries that you'll have. Getting something cut off or getting something coming back at you that's a whole lot faster than when you started pushing it through. When it comes to joiners, planers, shapers, and I'm not sure if lathes count on this, it's 10,930 injuries a year. The miter saw causes 6,800, 3,500 due to a bandsaw, and 350 for radial arm saws. The radial arm saw and the miter saw, a lot of the same ones. It's going to be that cutting motion. Who's tried to do a cross cut with a miter saw before? I don't need to see hands because I don't want to see your fingers later. But I've certainly done it as well. One little cut one time, not a big deal, right? Until that thing goes zipping past your ear. All told, all those together in 1 year equals 61,330 ER visits nationwide. That's 168 per day if you average it out. All of them are preventable. Most all of them are preventable. You know, there are the incidents where there's a flaw in the wood and you don't see it. But a lot of times it's just, I don't need that fingerboard. I can push it through. We get complacent. We're all guilty of it at some time or another. Okay, and those are the incidents that we have to really watch for. Now, let's say the worst case scenario happens and you have an accident. What do you want to do? It's really going to depend on the injury. You cut that finger off, or you get a gash from a saw blade or a kickback and it cuts you. First thing we want to do is control the bleeding. In an ideal world, you'll have some clean rag or some clean, your shirt, a shop towel, paper towels, whatever you have, that's what you want to use. You want to put direct pressure on the injury and keep it there. Don't do that, okay? Keep it on there, so let your blood start to clot. Secondly, let's say you had that kickback and you think you broke a bone. Okay, if you break a bone, your body is set up to protect itself. So if you break your arm, what's the first thing you're going to want to do? Human nature is going to go like this. And as a paramedic, I'm going to have a heck of a time trying to convince you to do anything but that. That's your body protecting that injury. That's the best thing you can do. If you can do that, and then you can wiggle your fingers too, and your fingers don't start to turn blue, you're well ahead of the game. Okay? Then you want to call 911, or if you're willing to tell your spouse that you just did this, have them drive you out. When it comes to those types of injuries, you normally, as a general rule of thumb, have 24 hours to get stitches. Okay, so it's not like you cut your hand off, you need to go 95 miles an hour to the ER. You've got time. Control that bleeding, safely get to the ER. With a broken bone, depending on the bone, you know, my son, I believe, while he was riding a motorcycle, broke his collarbone, and he never had surgery. It never got set. Your body naturally protects it. The collarbone's in a spot where there's not a lot of motion that's not going to be hindered by pain, and you wouldn't even need it. You break a long bone, like your arm or your leg, they say you have up to a week to get it set. Go that day, by all means. It's going to hurt a lot. And the sooner you get it set, the sooner healing can start. And then, of course, there's always the old reliable concussion. That's the one where you don't necessarily have to get knocked unconscious. You don't have to lose consciousness to get a concussion. You get that, you're pushing that 2x4 through a table saw, it kicks back, hits you in the head. It's not telltale that you wake up on the floor. All right? So the things you're going to look for, the signs of a concussion, can be a headache, can be sensitivity to light, it can be nausea. Like you felt fine before, but now you feel really sick to your stomach. Those are all signs of a concussion. And then if you do get sick to your stomach and the vomit shoots from, not to be gross, but shoots from here to the wall, that's a really bad sign. That's a sign of a head injury that's more significant than a concussion. And you definitely need to go to the ER. Okay? The old wives' tale that you shouldn't sleep after concussion, they don't really know what to do after concussion yet. You know, when your body sleeps, it's repairing itself. The biggest concern that they always used to have was if you fell asleep, you'd slip into a coma and then you'd never wake back up. That's not necessarily the truth. It could happen, but it's normally not the truth. What you want to do is get to the ER. They're going to do a CAT scan of your head to see if you have any internal bleeding that may be of concern that they'll have to help out with. Some other safety aspects to prevent those types of injuries. If you have loose clothing, it's got to be off. You guys have all been around shops long enough, you know that. Probably not a lot of you go work out in a wood shop wearing a tie. If you do have a tie on, take it off. It's just those simple things. Jewelry should probably come off. You know, that's certainly a bad one for me. I don't take my wedding ring off. But if you have bracelets, wristwatch, anything that can grab, you want to take it off. You want to stay as safe as you can. Okay? Now, when we talk about the other aspect of my job, not just the EMS side of it, but the fire side of it, despite that, I still am amazed that you put that in an oven for 380 for 2 hours. Your wife's got to love you a lot more than I think mine does, because that might draw a line. Despite that, wood burns. Okay? Now, how does wood burn? It can burn through a spark. It can burn through friction, and that friction then causes heat. Now, with a big chunk of wood, we don't normally worry about that friction. Or we don't normally worry about a spark. If we're talking about a spark, what are we thinking about? We're thinking about our sawdust, right? We go out probably 6 times a year to either Birch or Omega for a fire in their sawdust system. You know, it's just a matter that sawdust, it's so fine, and if it's aerated, can be explosive. In a normal workshop like you guys have, we're not to that point, but it certainly can catch fire. Electrically, with those sparks, where are we going to see it from? We're going to see it from cords that aren't properly grounded. We're going to see it from cords that aren't completely intact and may have a fray to them. We can see it from cords that are over energized, causing too much heat. And we can even see it from extension cords that are tightly wrapped around something. You know, if you have an extension cord that has to reach out for your table saw and you wrap it around that table leg a dozen times, you're making a tiny little electrical generator, and that's going to cause heat. It's probably not going to ever be a problem to you, but that is a possibility of a fire. The other idea, the idea with friction, we've all used a dull blade before, a dull saw blade, and it starts to smoke and it burns the wood, and we get upset. It's our own fault because we didn't change the blade out. We wrecked a piece of wood, or we have to cut it a little shorter than we thought we were going to. Normally those types of fires aren't going to be a problem because it's such a big dense piece of wood to get that much heat that we're not going to really worry about it. But again, if you just smoke a piece of wood, you're going to have to air it out anyway. Don't just leave. Let it air out. Let it cool off. Let's make sure there's no other conditions that we need to worry about. Does anybody use linseed oil as a finish? What's the big concern we have with linseed oil? It spontaneously combusts when it's open to air and cotton. So we use a rag for linseed oil. The key is, the way they tell you to do it is lay it out flat. Get like an old paint can that's empty. Put a little water in it. Put them in there, seal it up. Don't let it have enough oxygen to actually catch on fire. You can go on YouTube and you can watch all kinds of videos on linseed oil fires. The biggest concern with linseed oil fires is they normally, in ideal conditions, they'll still take 3 hours to light. So if you put it away for the night, you go in 3 hours later, you're in bed, meanwhile your shop's on fire. So that's our biggest concern with that linseed oil, is it doesn't happen right away, like a spark would or something quicker like that. So what do we do to put out those fires? Lots of different things. You know, that fire triangle of you've got heat, you need heat, you need oxygen, and you need fuel. Well, we're working with the fuel. We're working with the wood. And we're making it in different sizes to make fuels readily available for it. There's plenty of oxygen, there's plenty of air in the room to do it. Now it's just got to find that heat source. And that heat source, like I said, that heat source can be spontaneous through chemical reaction. It can be electrical. I don't know if anybody smokes or not. If you smoke and you're not careful when you're in a wood shop, that can certainly be an indicator point. But when we talk about extinguishers, the way extinguishers are set up is they're set up for different materials. So a Class A extinguisher is considered ordinary combustibles. So the wood, okay, paper, anything you normally just find in your house, even the furnishings, would be ordinary combustibles. B is flammable liquids. C is electrical equipment. D is combustible metals. Does anybody do any metal lathe work or work with magnesium? Magnesium is probably the most common flammable or combustible metal around here. And then K is cooking oils. So around here, A and C, when we're talking about wood and we're talking about electricity. And let's be honest, what the issue was, he had the lights to run that. None of us are electricians. I didn't see anybody jumping up there because they knew exactly how to do it. So if you do have a fire, it is on the tool. The tool is still energized. One of the best things you can do is de-energize it. If you can safely get to that plug and unplug it, we're going to be money ahead, because now we've taken away that heat source. So if it hasn't gotten to the point where that fuel is spontaneously going now from its own, it's feeding itself, the fire might be able to die out right there. When it comes to selecting your extinguisher, probably the best one that fits into a wood shop would be an ABC extinguisher. So that's an extinguisher that puts out the ordinary combustibles, it puts out flammable liquids, and it puts out electrical fires. And what an ABC extinguisher is, and I always got to look at it, it's monoammonium phosphate. So it comes out like a powder. It's yellowish in color and it's sticky. So it's non-toxic, that's the good sign. Okay, it won't hurt you physically to breathe it in. You'll cough, it's not something you want to breathe, but you won't die from it. The bad part of that is that you're really going to have to clean that tool after it's all said and done, because it's going to coat it, and it's going to not destroy it, but it's going to make it sticky. When we talk about extinguishers, we've talked about what kinds there are. They're also rated. So this is kind of where it gets a little bit in the confusing side. The rating system for a Class A extinguisher, that ordinary combustible, is going to be a number. It's going to be a number in the letter A. So the numbers can go anywhere from 1 to 40. It's a dry powder chemical, but what it's doing is putting an equivalency to water. Now, to make it even more complicated, each number, so the number 1 is the equivalent of 1 1/4 gallons of water. So if you math it out, a 4A extinguisher should do the same amount of extinguishing as 5 gallons of water. Is that as absolutely clear as the government can make it for you?
And that's an A?
That's an A, yes. The only other rating is with the C, with the electrical one, and that's a number between 1 and 640. The bigger the number, the more you can allegedly put out with it. With both of them, the bigger the number, the more you should be able to put out with it. But those numbers are rated off of someone that knows how to use the extinguisher. So a fire professional like us that have used extinguishers, or someone that's taken the fire extinguisher class, and if you haven't taken one of those, I highly recommend taking them if you can. They're put out through our training center every so often. I can give you the quick, dirty 5-minute class of it right now, and it simply falls to the word PASS as an acronym. So, do we have an extinguisher here? I didn't bring one. We all know what the extinguisher looks like. It's got the handle at the top with the pin. The P in PASS means pull. You're going to pull that pin. Pull it completely out, because that's what's going to allow you to squeeze out the extinguishing agent. The A in PASS stands for aim. All right, so if this table's on fire, we want to aim at the base. We don't want to aim up at the flame. The flame isn't really the fire. The flame is simply light that is a byproduct of fire. We want to aim low. And then the first S in PASS is squeeze. Squeeze the trigger. And then the second S is sweep. So we're going to squeeze the trigger and we're going to sweep back and forth. What we're going to try and do is we're going to try and take away all the oxygen away from that fire. So it has to go out. We break that fire triangle. Once that's done, we can let off on the extinguishing agent or the extinguisher, and we don't turn our back on it. That's one of the big rules as a fireman. You never turn your back on a fire. So once it's extinguished, we're going to back off, put our smoke detector or our fire extinguisher down, and we're going to call 911. We are more than happy to come out and see how great a job you did putting that fire out. We don't like it as much 2 hours later when you leave and it somehow got away from you, and we come back and your shop is a total loss. When it comes to, there's all kinds of distances that are involved with how far away should your fire extinguisher be. Because we're all just individuals, there's no government regulation stating that you have to have one, no government regulation stating that you as an individual need to keep at a certain distance. As a good rule of thumb, if you have a good ABC extinguisher in a normal size shop, one will probably do you. You want it to be within 75 feet of you at any time. So most guys don't have a shop that large that one would be all right. If you need two, you need to get out and you need to call 911, because we can come in then with a whole lot more than a fire extinguisher and put it out. Things to remember, once the fire department gets there, simply tell us where you're at. Is anybody still inside? And then let us go in. Do not show us inside. I carry great big guys with big muscular arms with me so that I make sure no one ever goes in that's not supposed to go in. I'm far and away the little guy in this group. And that's what I really like about my crew is I don't ever have to worry about ever getting into trouble that way. Does anybody have any questions?
How long is an extinguisher good for? If you buy it, hang it on the wall, does it have to be recharged?
No, as long as it should have a gauge on it, and it should have a needle right in. There should be like a pie of it that's green. That means it's charged and ready to go. An ABC extinguisher that you would buy at Menards or Target or Walmart or anywhere like that is good forever. A good rule of thumb with maintenance on that is, if it gets to the point where you got to go over there and knock the dust off it, take it off. If you have a rubber mallet, pound the bottom of it, kind of pound it all around. That powder in there sometimes can settle. If you do that, it'll just kind of fluff it back up and be more ready for the next time. But there is no, you don't have to do any testing with it. There's no expiration date on them.
But if the needle gets down with red, you throw it away?
I wouldn't throw it away until you got a new one. Does that make sense? I would probably buy a new one just for my own safety and well-being, but even that one that's in the red is better than nothing. You know, if you got that small fire, you can be able to possibly put it out. If it doesn't work, you're not out anything. You just need to back out.
The ones that you buy at the box stores, etc., are those refillable then, or are we better off just pitch them and buy a new one?
Yep, those are probably not refillable. They're one-time use only.
What's the chances of static electricity setting off a fire in a dust collection system?
Depends how big the dust collection system is and how dry it can get.
Small dust collection system.
Boy, I would think that it'd be pretty small. I've not only not been on a fire that was caused by that, and a small one-person unit, I've never heard of one. But that's not to say it couldn't happen.
I've never gotten a shock off, but they were raising hair on my arm.
Yep. Yeah. Yep, and that's what causes the big ones at Omega a lot of times is the static. They have static inhibitors on those, and sometimes they fail. Yeah, partner. How many times would I do what? Refill it? Well, we have ones on the fire truck that are, we've got a couple of, we've got dry chemical ones, and those are just one-time deals. Then they get taken away and filled again because we have big ones. But then we also have silver ones that just have water in them, and we fill them to a certain amount with water, and then we put like basically an air compressor on it and pressurize it so that it shoots water out. And those we can fill up hundreds of times. Those oftentimes we'll use, if it's a small report of a fire where we get there and there's nothing showing, there's no smoke, that's all we'll take in initially. And lots of times, we put a good firefighter can put a lot of fire out with that 4 gallons of water.
I can't think what, if it's an ABC or what it is, but I have some that I have on my wall. They're not huge, but they're pretty good size. And they have tags on it. I mean, like every year, every couple of years, I have to take them to the fire extinguisher shop and have to test them.
For your own personal one?
Well, it's one for a business that I have.
Okay. Businesses, you might run into it where there's regulation. I know bee extinguishers have to be hydro tested, but I know that the ABCs don't normally have to.
Yeah, rental property, what size one do you need in a rental property?
What size will the renter use?
Pardon?
What size will the renter use is kind of the answer.
Just a regular home.
Yeah, just a small one somewhere.
A and B and C.
I would find a combination ABC one. They're all relatively the same priced. So that way it gets 3 different possibilities. Majority of house fires are in the kitchen. You might have that grease fire, or it could be electrical from an appliance there that you're gonna kind of cover all your bases. And I'm not sure what each size is called, but it's it's that big around, that tall, is a good rental size one.
Usually the city tells you what you can buy.
What's that?
Usually the city tells you what you can buy.
That might be too. There might be, yeah, there's probably a fire code for it that you probably need to look into.
Floor, basement.
Yeah, I would ideally you'd want one in the kitchen, but not above the stove, somewhere where you can get to it in the kitchen. I'd also be a good idea by the furnace or the water heater, something that maybe has a pilot light, something that's fed through natural gas, just for the quickness of being able to get it.
So you don't have to fire gate line.
Right.
I saw one of the demonstration on TV one time, and the guy said that most fire extinguishers give you 30 seconds of actual use. Is that true?
Yeah, that's probably pretty close, 30 seconds with a dry chem. And that's if you know what you're doing, it's in good shape, in good condition, and ready to go. If you don't think you can put it out with the extinguisher, you can't. If it's gotten to the point where it's like, I don't know, then get out. That's all I can tell you. It's a whole lot easier for us to go in and put it out and not have to worry about finding somebody. Yes, sir.
When you put a water faucet above the stove, it should not be allowed.
You put a water faucet above the
Above the stove, so you could apply.
that just screams of a bad idea. Right. That's an extremely common fire that we have. Is it's a grease fire that they make worse by dumping water on it. And every single person says the exact same thing. I put water on it, and it just went like this. And that's absolutely the truth. If you watch a video on it, it's incredible. Because what that water's doing is it's pushing in there, it's splashing, and now you're making even more readily available fuel to a spot that's already got enough heat to go. Right. Yep. Anything else? Any other questions?
Pretty good way with sawdust, accumulate heat in it over time, so we use that possibility.
Is there any good way in with sawdust? But
Spontaneous combustion with sawdust.
is there any?
Is that a possibility?
From wet dust?
Sawdust.
Oh, so you're cutting a wet piece of wood?
Yeah, you got a bunch of it empty or
Yeah. I don't.
put it in a
Yeah.
container.
You know, I guess I grew up on a farm, and we baled a lot of hay. God, we baled a lot of hay. And that was always an issue. If the hay was hot, or the hay was wet, you couldn't put it up in the hay mound because it would get hot. Hot enough to spontaneously combust. But that's a huge area with absolutely no air movement. Because I was always the guy up in the hay mound, and there wasn't no air moving at all. You know, it's possible, but I just don't think it'd be very probable. Yep.
You mentioned safety of wearing watches and so on. You didn't mention rings. If anybody has ever seen any films on degloving, you'd never wear a ring.
Oh, absolutely, yep.
Watch pins will break.
Right. Yeah, these are meant not to break, you know.
Rings will rip your finger right off.
Mm-hmm. And before I was on the truck, I was on the ambulance, and I've seen issues of, it wasn't from woodworking, but I've seen deglovings, and it's probably the most disgusting thing you'll ever see. It's actually where your hand is just fine, except for the fact that the skin is now completely off. You can't skin a fish as good as the hand I saw that was degloved. And they do miracles in medicine nowadays, but your hand will never be the same.
We're going to ground our tools along the dust collection place, if they're not metal, for static electricity. How many fires do you get out of Omega that are static electricity, or maybe they're electrical sparks?
We have quite a few fires that are electrical in nature. Whether or not it was due to a spark, because something wasn't grounded properly, or we run into shoddy wiring or wiring that a rat or mouse will get into. I don't know if I can necessarily answer that one very well, but grounding yourself is normally always a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I can grab my pipe and you can feel it in the zap and pumping a lot of air.
Yep. And especially on something like a big sander, something that's going to make really fine dust. That's going to be the bigger issue as opposed to something that's making the bigger sawdust chunks. Any other questions? I appreciate you guys attending this. All good questions. Hopefully you learned something out of this. Hopefully I don't see you on a fire call anytime soon. But I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant, and thank you, fellas, for coming along with. I just have one other thing. Jack still have Some of us would still like to know where the gorillas and the lions are in your cutout. I wonder if you can show it to us.
I'd be happy to. You can actually see it from back there. Gorilla's under the tree here, and the lion's under the tree over here. You just put it on a contrasting color wall. And once people see it, they say, oh yeah, I see it. Thank you.
All right, you bet. Thank you, Jack. All right, well, that concludes this month's meeting. Hope to see you all next month.